everyone counted him out until one earth-shattering head kick rewrote history.
That is a dejected...
From the violent streets of Kingston, Jamaica, to dealing with a traumatic loss that sent him down the darkest of paths, he's been through it all. Once you hear Leon Edwards' story, you'll understand why they call the man Rocky. How did the son of a gang leader who seemed destined to follow in his father's footsteps become UFC champion?
Leon Rocky Edwards, your new welterweight champion!
Oh my goodness!
This is the story of the biggest underdog in combat sports history. Leon Edwards' story starts in Kingston, Jamaica, a place where survival meant adapting to a harsh reality. Born in 1991, Leon's childhood was spent in a tiny wooden shack with a zinc roof, sharing a single room with his mother and brother. Life was tough. There was no electricity or running water. But what made it even harder was the violence. Gunshots echoed through the streets so often that they became background noise. For Leon, it was normal. In Jamaica, killing seemed normal. You'd hear gunshots and think nothing of it. He once said, but behind those gunshots lay a world ruled by gangs. At the time, Kingston's murder rate was among the highest in the world, with entire neighborhoods known as garrison communities controlled by gang leaders instead of the government. And in young Leon's eyes, no one held more power than his father Rufus. Rufus wasn't just any man, he was a gang leader. To Leon, that meant respect, power, and influence. His father's status brought things most kids in his neighborhood could only dream of, like a bicycle and a skateboard. These were small luxuries that made Leon feel special because, in a place where poverty was the norm, they meant everything. Rufus seemed untouchable, and for a while, Leon idolized him. But there was a darker side. With power came danger. The same father who provided for his family also put them in harm's way. Leon witnessed his first murder at just 8 years old, a gang execution right outside their home. But for him, it wasn't shocking. It was just a part of life. That early exposure to violence blurred the lines between right and wrong. His father's world seemed glamorous, but it was soaked in blood. Keep in mind that Rufus was also absent. Although he provided, he wasn't always around. Leon didn't even know that he had a younger brother, Fabian, until he was 6 years old. His father's lifestyle meant that he came and went, leaving gaps in the family that no amount of material comforts could fill. Eventually, the Edwards family decided that it was time to find a safer home and start again. At 9 years old, Leon boarded a plane with his family. They were leaving behind the gunshots, gangs, and blood-soaked streets of Kingston, Jamaica, heading for Birmingham, England, a new country and a fresh start, a chance to escape the violence that had swallowed so many lives. Unfortunately for them, however, the street wouldn't let them go that easily. Leon crossed continents, but the fight for survival wasn't over. He thought he escaped, but he stepped into a new hole that pulled him in even deeper. Rufus continued his involvement in crime, and the cycle repeated. Leon was forced to deal with the reality of his father's choices. To paint a picture for you, the factories that used to power Birmingham's economy had shut down, which meant unemployment and crime kept rising. The accents were different and the weather was colder, but the streets were familiar. Gangs also ruled the blocks in Aston. Leon still heard gunshots at night. It was as if the dark side of Kingston followed them across the ocean, and the only thing that changed was the postal code. For young Leon, adapting meant returning to what he knew. His father taught him early on that power and respect were everything. Rufus was a man who commanded attention and fear. To Leon, his father represented strength and success, even if that power came with a price. But as the years passed in Birmingham, Rufus's influence faded. He wasn't always around, and the promise of a new beginning started to fade. The streets offered their own education, territory disputes, violence, and survival tactics that mirrored the life they had left behind. For Leon, the line between right and wrong blurred. The respect his father once commanded now seemed within reach through street fights and dangerous alliances. But then came the night that changed everything. It was 2 a.m. when the phone rang. Leon, just 13 years old, heard his mother pick up. When he heard her cry, he knew what it meant. His father had been murdered in a London nightclub. I knew what he was involved in, so I knew eventually something would happen. But it was a traumatic situation. It wasn't like he died in his sleep, he was murdered. The man he had looked up to his entire life was gone. The streets claimed Rufus just like they claimed many others. His father's death cut off the last thread, holding him back from the life Rufus led. Grief turned into anger, and the power his father held seemed like the only thing worth chasing. And Leon knew exactly how to get it. He spiraled. Street fights became routine, drug dealing and running with local crews followed, arrest after arrest, with his worrying mother there to bail him out every time. But the cycle kept repeating. He later spoke of that time, saying, "Your brain is so diluted, "You think this is life?" Birmingham's gangs became his world. The survival instincts sharpened in Kingston. Fighting, hypervigilance, and aggression define his teenage years. His father's death didn't scare him straight, it pushed him deeper into the streets. Every fight and risk was an opportunity to earn the respect his father commanded. Looking back, Leon reflects on his father with a mix of understanding and resolve. "If you consider the cards he was dealt, my dad did the best he could, but it led to his demise." For Leon, Rufus represented a dream and a warning, a man who had power but paid the ultimate price for it. Throughout all of this, however, and during the darkest times, there was one person who refused to give up on him: his mother. She knew where this path led. She had already lost a husband to the streets, and she wasn't about to lose her baby boy as well. So she pushed Leon towards something different, a small local MMA gym. It wasn't much, but it offered something the streets couldn't: structure, discipline, and purpose. Stepping into that gym changed everything. For the first time, Leon wasn't fighting to survive. He was fighting for something more. It wasn't a grand arena, no flashing lights or roaring crowds, but for Leon, it became the doorway to a new life. Leon was 17 when his mother first spotted that gym. She was on her way home from one of her many hospitality jobs, working long hours to keep the family afloat. But when she saw the gym sign, she knew this could be the chance Leon needed. The chance to pull him away from the streets that had already taken too much from their family. She didn't give him a choice. "She told me, you're going. You're doing this." At first, Leon didn't get it. He'd been fighting for years on the streets, where respect came with bruises and survival meant winning at all costs. But this? Gloves, mats, coaches barking instructions, it felt foreign. He later admitted that at the time, he'd never had a fair fight before. But the gym had something the streets never did: structure, training schedules, weight cuts, learning disciplines like jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai. Every drill, every sparring session gave Leon something he'd never had before: purpose. Fighting wasn't about surviving anymore, it was about thriving. The coaches noticed early on that Leon wasn't just tough, he was talented. Years of street fights had sharpened his reflexes, but here, those instincts were refined. Wrestling, which was his biggest weakness at the time, became a focus. His coaches saw how quickly he picked things up. The mindset he'd built from years of hardship translated perfectly into the discipline MMA requires. But the gym gave Leon more than a career path. It gave him family. His younger brother Fabian joined him soon after. For two brothers who had grown up in a broken home and experienced the trauma of losing their father to the streets, training together forged a bond they never had. Punches, kicks, and hours on the mats turned into shared dreams. Later on, Fabian became a Bellator contender, but back then, it was just two brothers pushing each other and fighting for a way out. Leon later reflected on this time, saying, "I could see my mom was proud of me when I brought home trophies. That's what kept me at it." His mother's pride meant everything to him. The gym wasn't just a place to fight, it was a place to rebuild. With his mother's support, she had a deep, unshakable pride in how far her boy had come. None of this was lost on Leon, as years later, he gave her a restaurant, honoring the sacrifices she made to keep their family together. In 18 months, Leon went from amateur fights to the professional circuit, compiling an 8-1 record before the UFC called him in 2014. Fighting saved him, and with every hard-fought round, Leon wasn't just doing it for himself, he was fighting for her. He made his UFC debut in November 2014, stepping into hostile territory in Brazil to face Claudio Silva. It wasn't the fairy tale start, however. Silva's relentless grappling game earned him a split decision win, exposing gaps in Leon's wrestling defense. Still, Leon showed flashes of brilliance with his striking. There was potential, but his coaches still had to polish him. Rocky wasn't just there to fill up the UFC roster though. He came back in April 2015 with a bang, literally. Facing Seth Baczynski, Leon delivered an 8-second knockout, one of the fastest finishes in welterweight history.
Baczynski, he is in the one with red.
It's out straight away! That's the end of the fight! My goodness!
One and done for Leon Rocky Edwards.
A clean right hook and bam, lights out. The performance of the night bonus wasn't just a paycheck, it was Leon letting everyone know he had arrived, and his momentum was building. 3 months later at Fight Night 72, Leon put on a more disciplined performance, outpointing Pavel Pawlak with smart cage control. It wasn't flashy, but it showed he was improving. But the year ended with a tough reality check, a big loss to none other than the Nigerian Nightmare, Kamaru Usman. Like he did with everyone else he fought, the future champion smothered Leon with wrestling, winning a unanimous decision. But Leon wasn't broken. This loss planted the seed for a long-term transformation in his game. His early UFC years were a mixed bag, explosive knockouts tempered by struggles against grapplers, but the foundation for something special was taking shape. In 2016, he started turning those lessons into wins. At Fight Night 87, he handled Dominic Waters with sharp clinch work and ground strikes. Then came a real turning point. At UFC 204, Leon scored his first submission, choking out Albert Tumenov in the third round. This was proof that Leon was patching up his weaknesses. The guy who was just a striker was slowly becoming a well-rounded fighter. 2017 was all about refinement. He outclassed Vicente Luque with smart pressure fighting and neutralized Brian Barberena's wild brawling with crisp counterstrikes and distance control. His fight IQ was better, and Leon was learning the smart way to fight and win. By 2018, Leon was no longer a promising prospect. Rocky was now a serious contender in the division. In March, he put Peter Sabata away with brutal elbows at the last second of round 3, the latest stoppage in welterweight history at the time. Then came a signature win over Donald Cowboy Cerrone, where he outpointed the veteran in a tactical striking clinic. 2019 looked like it would be the year he made his final push towards a title shot. He edged out Gunnar Nelson in a close fight using sharp jabs and improved takedown defense. But the big statement came when he dominated former lightweight champion Rafael dos Anjos, truly cementing himself as a top 5 welterweight. Then drama outside the cage stole the spotlight. Backstage after the Nelson fight, Jorge Masvidal hit Leon with the infamous 3-piece and a soda combo, cutting his face and sparking a rivalry that unfortunately never played out in the octagon. Just as things were heating up, the pandemic hit. His planned fight with Tyron Woodley was scrapped, and Rocky was stuck on the sidelines for nearly 2 years. The momentum he had built seemed to evaporate. When Leon finally returned in 2021, the comeback didn't go as planned. A highly anticipated fight against Bilal Muhammad ended abruptly after an accidental eye poke, leaving fans questioning whether or not Leon was ready for a title shot. He needed a statement win, and that's when Nate Diaz came in. At UFC 263, Leon dominated Diaz for 4.5 rounds, using leg kicks, clinch control, and precise strikes. But in true Stockton fashion, Nate landed a late left hand that wobbled Edwards in the final minute and shook his mother. He later told the story laughing and reflecting on a protective instinct, saying,
"So when I got rocked by Diaz, I opened the window, I started screaming, 'Help!'"
Despite the scare, Leon secured a unanimous decision win. It wasn't perfect, but it reminded everyone that he belonged among the elite. Not only that, but this was the 10th win in a row for Leon. It is extremely rare that a fighter wins 10 fights in a row without fighting for the belt. This meant Rocky was now impossible to deny or ignore. He was heading for the gold next. In 2022, all roads led to UFC 278. Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman for the welterweight title. Now, you need to understand the monumental run Usman was on. As impressive as Leon's 10-fight win streak was, Kamaru was on a 15-fight win streak, the second longest in UFC history, behind only Anderson Silva's 16. The Nigerian Nightmare was the pound-for-pound king. This was a title he earned over the past 7 years. Tactical brilliance, physical dominance, and a suffocating wrestling game. Wins over RDA, Demian Maia, and Tyron Woodley. 2 tactical masterpieces against Colby Covington, brutal knockouts of Gilbert Burns and Jorge Masvidal, 5 successful title defenses against elite competition. Usman had a 100% takedown defense during his title reign. Not to mention, he had already beaten Leon back in 2015. All of these reasons and more were why Usman was a minus 360 favorite. For Kamaru, it wasn't just another title defense. It was about cementing himself as the welterweight GOAT over Georges St. Pierre. Fight night was here, and you could feel the tension in the arena. In the first round, Leon stunned the champion with a takedown. This was the first time Usman was taken down during his title reign, and Leon controlled him on the ground for nearly 4 minutes. Damage was done on Kamaru's face, and you could see it. During the next 3 rounds, however, the champion recalibrated, battering Leon's body with 42% of his strikes, targeting the midsection. By the end of round 4, Usman had landed nearly twice as many significant strikes as Leon. The round was over, and both men went to their respective corners for a quick rest.
20 minutes down, 5 to go.
A dejected challenger.
Yes.
There's usually nothing too interesting about this, but this night was different. Leon Edwards' coach Dave Lovell felt beyond inspired and gave the greatest real-life motivational speech ever.
Listen, stop feeling sorry for your well, come on then. What's wrong with you? You're too now. You gotta pull the out of the fire. Come on, Leon, man. You got it, man. Come on.
You got the sharpshooter and presses, yeah?
Round 5 started, and throughout 4 minutes, the narrative seemed set.
If it wasn't obvious enough, Leon right now is broken.
This is do or die for Leon Edwards. He's got to do something big.
With 1 minute and 15 seconds to go, as Joe Rogan argued that Leon Edwards may have resigned himself to losing a decision.
He may have resigned himself to losing a decision.
John Anik had the most perfectly timed commentary call in the sport's history.
But that is not the cloth from which he is cut. Dejected. Oh! No! There it is. No!
Oh my goodness!
Leon Rocky Edwards, your new welterweight champion!
Oh my goodness!
The seemingly invincible champion was out cold. Kamaru's 1,135-day reign was over. Unbelievable. When they pan the camera at the audience, you can see legends like Henry Cejudo and Gilbert Burns in shock. The disbelief was palpable. Everyone's jaw dropped to the floor. No one could keep their mouth closed. It was a moment of pure euphoria for some, and heartbreaking for others. Nevertheless, the reality was that, fittingly, the man whose nickname was Rocky just had the greatest comeback in sports history. It was the ultimate underdog story. The title was wrapped around his waist as Bruce Buffer declared Leon the new welterweight champion of the world. Joe Rogan approached him for the signature post-fight interview, and even Leon's interview was epic. He roared in the octagon, overwhelmed with passion, reminding everyone,
Don't doubt me, I couldn't do it. The odds that I couldn't do it. Look at me now! Level pound for pound, headshot, dead!
from a tiny wooden shack with a zinc roof in Kingston, Jamaica, to UFC welterweight champion. He had finally done it. The reactions were wild. The Notorious called it madness, and even Kamaru's good friend Adesanya tweeted, "Never count out Rocky. That's championship hard." As Dana White said during the post-fight press conference,
anything is possible in this sport. And it's what makes this sport the greatest sport in the world.
you need to understand that the fight-ending sequence wasn't just luck though. It was the result of meticulous preparation. Leon's coach later revealed in an interview that they drilled that feint to head kick combo 200 times during camp. This was technical, purposeful, and cerebral. Leon jabbed Kamaru's body 14 times previously, conditioning the champ to lower his right hand. A subtle pivot to a close stance created the perfect kicking angle. The left hand feint pulled Usman's guard downward 6 inches, which was just enough exposure. After the post-fight interview, it was time for Rocky to tell Adrian he'd done it. But in this case, Adrian was Leon's mother, the woman who had never left his side, the woman who pushed him to MMA after bailing him out of prison countless times. He knew he owed everything to her. Leon called his mom in a beautiful and emotional phone call that we are lucky was recorded, as he cried uncontrollably and told his mom,
I told you, Mom. I told you I did it.
right in the feels. But just like bad times don't last forever, neither do good times. And tomorrow came. Leon was now a champion, and that came with new pressures. In their trilogy fight at UFC 286, Usman came back looking for revenge. Leon had leveled up though. He defended takedowns that would have once grounded him and outstruck Usman to win a majority decision, even with a point deduction for grabbing the fence. It wasn't flashy, but it proved something bigger. Leon wasn't just a champion, he knew how to stay champion. 5 months later, Leon faced Colby Covington at UFC 296. Covington, known for relentless wrestling, could not break through Leon's defense. Leon kept the fight standing, controlling the pace for a dominant unanimous decision. The doubters were fading. Leon's evolution from Muay Thai striker to complete mixed martial artist was complete. But MMA is unforgiving, and at UFC 304, Leon faced Bilal Muhammad in a long-awaited rematch. This time, Bilal didn't let the opportunity slip. His relentless wrestling and top control shut Leon down, ending Edwards' incredible 13-fight unbeaten streak. The loss raised tough questions. Has Leon hit his ceiling? Can he adapt again? The answers will come soon, as Leon is scheduled to face Jack Della Maddalena on March 22nd. For Rocky, this could be a roadblock to the title or a career crossroads. Leon Edwards' story isn't just about winning the UFC championship. It's a blueprint for breaking cycles and building legacies. From street fights that earned him the nickname Rocky to championship bouts that redefined it. His journey proves that that with the right opportunity and relentless determination, even the harshest beginnings can shape a beautiful legacy. From Kingston's toughest streets to the world's brightest stages, Leon's story proves that underdogs don't just survive, they thrive. And if there's anyone who knows about hardship, that would be the one and only Francis Ngannou. Did you know the former heavyweight champion of the world crossed the deadly Sahara Desert and made his way to Europe in a raft? Watch his story next by clicking the video on your screen. I'll see you there.